Hey, hey. Tobago updates. Na, 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 na. Good morning, Tobago. Na, 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 na. Wake up with Candace and Denicia. Let's go, go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks a favor to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong, and the vibes is never wrong. We are beauty, we are power. We are people in the sun. We are beaches, we are rivers. We are melanated ones. We special and there is no denying. Tobago is number one. I am you and you are me.
Tobago on Tobago Updates, your source for current affairs in Tobago, Trinidad, and the region. Conversations to complement your morning routine. I am Candace Jackson, and let's get started with the news in 90 seconds. The Tobago Inter-Island Transportation Company denied overbooking tickets on the APT James Ferry on Monday morning. Hundreds of people with confirmed tickets claimed that they were not allowed to board at the Scarborough Port, while dozens of people on standby were accommodated. Many were participants in the Panorama Medium Band finals. Acting CEO of TTIT, Verma Lewis Cockburn, said they did not oversell tickets. However, she explained that only 100 confirmed passengers were left behind because they did not check in on time for their 6:30 sailing, and they began taking passengers listed on standby. Despite the unfortunate situation, Lewis Cockburn stated that all the affected passengers were accommodated on later sailings. Meanwhile, the newly appointed board of the Housing Development Corporation will soon include a member of the Tobago House of Assembly. Speaking at an appointment ceremony at the HEC South Key Port of Spain head office on Tuesday, Housing Minister Camille Robinson-Regis announced that Kurt Solandi would soon be joining the board. According to Robinson-Regis, the previous board was hampered by the pandemic but was still able to meet some of the objectives. She hopes that with the new board, they will continue the government's vision of providing affordable housing. And nationally, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley stated the costs of renewable energy in the Caribbean are too high. Dr. Rowley was speaking at an international energy conference in Guyana yesterday. He explained that the Caribbean holds approximately 3,000 megawatts of potential solar energy, 800 megawatts of potential wind energy, and over 3,000 megawatts of potential geothermal energy. However, he said the infrastructure needed to harness renewable energy is too high for small island developing states. As a result, Dr. Rowley believes the Caribbean will be dependent on fossil fuels for the foreseeable future. And that was your news in 90 seconds. Well, viewers, we have a lot happening within our space. We are getting ready for Carnival. We are in that very busy week of Carnival and so on. And every night there is some activity. Last night we had the THA Panchams. And of course, congratulations goes out to Cats and Jammers for being on top again. So they took the medium band finals for Panorama, and now they're at the top of the THA Panchams. They're just continuing to be excellent in everything that they do, and we applaud them certainly for their efforts. And we're going to get into some of those conversations a little later on in the program. However, as we are getting into Carnival, we need to also think about our safety as it relates to our public health safety. And to give us some tips on to put things into perspective for us, we have none other than Public Health Inspector 4, Mr. Ricardo Bobb, on set with us. Good morning and welcome to you, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm wonderful. I hope you're wonderful as well.
Certainly. And it's always a pleasure to have you on with us. So give us an idea of what are some of the things that people need to pay attention to when it comes to Carnival?
Well, the first thing is that folks must recognize that your health is your responsibility. And you need to take extra special care of you. We just came out of a COVID pandemic and lots of the restrictions have been relaxed, but it doesn't mean that hygiene principles must get thrown out of the door. History has shown, research has shown that good hygiene is one of the best things to protect your health. So hand washing, you should still keep your hands clean. Walk with your sanitizer. Make sure that you are careful. If you have the flu, oh, please stay home. I know people want to, go and revel, but the critical thing is that you need to protect yourself and the ones you love as well. So those things are very, very important. Now, those are on the environmental side, the hygiene, because even though there are no protocols per se that you must do this, because when people start to get happy, they tend to throw.
They forget.
Yeah, they tend to throw principle. But what we're saying is people need to be ever conscious, because it doesn't mean that because we don't have a pandemic that something cannot happen. And when you have people gathering in a place, the potential is there. So that conscientiousness we want people to maintain.
Now, we know that COVID-19 continues to be around and it continues to affect everybody. And that's the one thing that we think about now as to what can easily spread. But there's, in fact, a lot of diseases that are easily spread around among these times. So what are some of those things that, we find cropping up in the public health system?
Well, of course, you have the flu. Yeah, and I've heard some people have had it really, really bad.
Yes.
All right, because once you have those droplets that are aerosolized and so on, the potential, especially for people with weakened immunities. But one of my main concerns is the issue of food-borne illness. That's a big thing because, human beings must eat. You burn up all that energy on the streets, and there are lots of vendors. People are going to want to eat. And so lots of people get sick during the carnival period because of improper food handling practices, both on the part of the patrons and those who provide services. And so there are guidelines there. Definitely, those restrictions are not loosened at all. And so we want people to actually look for people who are registered food handlers, because the badges are supposed to be displayed by everyone who is handling food. And of course, your hygiene facilities, your hot holding, your cold holding. Make sure that people are using their hands to handle the food, your dispensers, your tongs, your forks, your spoons. All those things are very important because, it doesn't matter what good time you have. If you get sick subsequently, then you can have a problem. And know that you can start to get sick from within half an hour.
Yes.
To up to 3 months. That's the IP, the incubation period of various agents. So we have, let's say you have metallic poisoning that could start within half an hour. Then you have like staphylococcus within 2 hours. And so there are some foods now that up to 3 months, that agent can be in you. And of course, poor personal hygiene through the fecal oral route, we can have disease being spread because if you handle the food, you didn't wash your hands, you pass agents on to folks, and then now they didn't practice good personal hygiene because remember, people are reveling, they are fretting, and what happens? They would not recognize the hygiene practices. Usually, you know what I say to people? Why do you not forget to put your clothes back on? They never do that, but they forget
to wash their hands. And it's so crucial. It's something very simple, but incredibly crucial to our health.
Yeah. When you study the research in terms of hygiene, do you know more diseases are prevented by good personal hygiene? If you look at historically, when they did surgeries and they didn't wash their hands, more people died. As soon as they started to practice those hygiene principles, washing their hands and so on, clean clothing, then the incidence of disease and death significantly reduced.
Now, as you mentioned clean clothing, when we think about Juve and so on, we think about mud, we think about paint, and we're covered, our bodies are covered in these things. And then we go to handle food and we go to handle drink, most of the times to consume. But what are some of the things that, how are some of the ways that our health can be affected by, let's say, the paint and the mud getting into our food and digested into our system?
Well, the thing is, God is so wonderful is that He has given us something called a lag phase in terms of microbial growth. So in terms of the paint, you may not have that. But what you want to do, if you're going to consume food, you want to ensure that that paint doesn't get in you. Because it's not just about the poisoning aspect. You have the sensitivity that some people may have to various chemicals. But even more than that, if you're talking in terms of the food, you must ensure that those who are selling you food, they are not in mud.
That's very important.
They are not in mud because they could be a source of contamination in the food. And the lag phase means that you prepare food as close to the serving time as possible. and you try to consume. Usually, we have like about a 4-hour window after food is prepared to consume. And then now, but you want to keep it within a 2-hour time frame to be very, very safe, because you have some microbes that can survive all kinds of conditions.
And they multiply very fast.
Oh yeah, every 20 minutes, and if you did math, you may know about geometric progression. When you produce one baby, then you stop, but the microbes still continue. So if you start with 2, then in 20 minutes 4, and then 8, and then and so on.
And when it comes to, mixing alcohol, what are some of the things that we need to be cognizant of? Because, of course, alcohol is something that is very prevalent around Carnival time.
Yeah, well, people need to make some good personal choices. You want to have a clear mind, because besides the food aspect, you're talking about your personal safety. You want to make judgments in terms of your morality and spirituality that are, in keeping with longevity, if I could put it that way. And so if you are consuming lots of alcohol, you're going to slow down the firing of your nerves. It means that you wouldn't be swift in making certain decisions. But people have different tolerances to that based on liver conditions and enzymes and so on. So you need to be very, very careful. If you know you can't handle it, then please leave it alone.
It's okay to be holding a bottle of water or putting some water in your cup.
I love that. Water, because remember, when you are moving, what are you doing? You're utilizing energy. All biological processes need water. And so hydration is very important. As a matter of fact, it has been shown that dehydrated people can exhibit symptoms of mania. And just by, when you go to the hospital, you're dehydrated, what do? They put some IV in you and hydrate you real quickly, and you come right back. Yeah? So that's important. So work with some water. You can wash your hands. You can have your sanitizer, clean your hands. Make sure you be observant in terms of those who are serving you, in terms of food safety. And of course, you can still practice your distancing. Folks, wearing masks is actually optional. It's up to you. You can wear them for your own safety. And the thing about it is that make sure that you are ever conscious that your safety is your responsibility.
Yes, so don't let that get lost in the revelry.
No. As a matter of fact, listen, Candice, I've said, even though the restrictions are relaxed, we should still keep the hygiene aspects. We should still keep them as a person. So don't wait until, okay, you are told. Whenever I go to any business place, the first thing I do is look for the hygiene facilities. I look for it. Yeah, and I usually walk with a little kind of Lysol spray, so I also sanitize myself, even though they may not have it provided for me.
Should vendors have sanitization stations and so on as part of their food stall, whatever the case may be, as they are serving people?
They can have, but the more critical thing, besides just the sanitization, you want to wash. You see, a sanitizer has its function, but it doesn't wash away. So when you actually have facilities to wash away, you can do that washing with soap and water and sanitizing. It's excellent. There's second to none.
What are some of the things that, vendors should be mindful of as they are serving people on the road?
All right. So now the thing is, it's a highly economic activity. People are out to make money, no problem with that. But the thing is, my philosophy is, if you're not prepared to eat that which you prepare, you shouldn't serve it to anybody. So ensure that you have, listen, something as good manners. People sometimes tend to be irate. Please, people, be patient and love the people that you serve. The next thing is that keep it clean, especially if you can have someone taking the cash for you, excellent. For those who have several food handlers, always remember that each food handler should be a registered food handler. And we want people to pay attention to those things. We've been doing registration since January. We've been doing like over 100 people a day. So it's a lot. So people have had the opportunity to get their registration, and we want them to pay attention to that. Keep the environment clean. Make sure you have facilities for your collection of your waste, because you're doing food. A place for the patrons to put their garbage. We want to keep it clean. Don't depend on the others and say, well, there are other people to do that. Let's be conscientious about our space. And what we'll find is that we will truly be the greatest little island on the planet.
And as you mentioned that, I remember after the Carnival in October, our streets were covered in boxes and bottles and a whole heap of trash. Like you, it looked like you were perhaps going through the streets of India or some of those
Wow.
places that have a lot of pollution.
Yeah.
What should people be mindful of? Like, how should people handle their trash?
All right. So now, if you provide receptacles and garbage bags, I recognize that people are actually, to a large extent, going to look for them. But if none are provided, the next thing is that from the perspective of the state, then there are opportunities for the collection of that waste. So, for example, folks are going to be moving through and taking up the trash as fast as possible. Because at the end of the day, I mean, garbage is a dirty word. Once you have that kind of waste, you're going to have proliferation of microbes and so on, and you really, really don't want to have a problem upon a problem. Yeah.
Yes, and then sometimes we don't know that some of that bottles and stuff, we don't realize that ends up in the sea.
Yes, yes, yeah. And of course, now, what does it do when it ends up in the sea? You affect your aquatic life. Of course, we are a tourist destination. I remember once I had a friend from Belgium, and that person came to Tobago and said, wow, this place is so clean. And then there was some trash. We went to a fort, and that person went with their bare hands, and they were taking up the trash, and I'm like, wow. They find our place is clean, and yet we're not conscientious about keeping that environment. So they were saying, no, we can't have trash. They were going behind the fence and taking up all the little bits of paper
Yes.
and finding a bin. And so if we have that kind of consciousness, do you know, it will really put us on the map as the cleanest place on earth. And I believe that that can happen.
And
But-
it's funny as you mentioned that, because I too have seen it actually on several occasions where it is the visitors to our island that tends to want to clean up, and we are the ones that are dirty in our island.
I think, yeah, we don't understand. So I want to make a plug especially for that, that the citizens of Tobago, we belong here. It is our responsibility to keep our environment clean. What I do, I sometimes have these garbage bags, and when I take the trash up, if there's something spilling in my street, I would take it up and I'll put it in a garbage bag and tie it. I'm not looking at what other people are doing. We have to be the example. And if every citizen does that, we are going to have excellence in this place.
All right. And then did we miss anything in terms of, just public health safety tips that we should know as we getting into Carnival?
All right. Now, please get some rest, because if you don't get rest as you revel, you are going to sometimes lose your control. We don't want people now to put themselves in unsafe situations, and then we have a worse problem. And I know, just to put a plug in another area, sometimes a few months down the road, people are wondering, how did that happen? How did I get myself into this? We must remember that we must have self-control. Don't do anything to lose your self-control and make a decision that you will regret after. But more than that, protect each other, and let's preserve our environment. And of course, we will have a much better situation.
Yes, and I like that suggestion. Let's get some rest in between. Some time. We don't need to go to every single party or every single juve or fete or whatever the case may be. We need to rest.
Rest is important.
All right. Well, Mr. Bobb, I want to thank you. I don't know if you have anything else left to say to the public.
Well, health is my thing. I love the area of health, both physically, mentally, spiritually, and socially. And I believe that we need to have a consciousness if we are to build a good island, a good nation. And that has to do with our taking time to utilize the law of cause and result. We must not be surprised at the result when we could trace back the cause. And so you must know yourself. We have been given the power of choice. And so everything that we do must be with that in mind, the bigger picture. Don't just live in the moment. Understand that if I throw a bottle here, down the road I may be killing the turtles, the very thing that the tourists are coming. My brother is employed in the tourist industry. My sister is employed in the tourist industry. I'm destroying myself. And use that principle across the board. When I litter my neighborhood, how does it affect my neighbor? How does it affect this one? How does it affect that one? There are laws of cause and effect. Also, the mind has plasticity. We can retrain ourselves if we choose to be more conscious. And when you're corrected about something that is doing wrong, don't get angry. Let's see how we could do better.
Yes. Most importantly, don't get angry.
Yeah.
Because I've had quite a few people get angry at me whenever I'm like, you should not be throwing that there.
That's right. Yeah.
People get very sensitive, and and those are the same people that complain about why the place is looking dirty.
That's right.
But
yeah.
hey, you're the one messing it up.
Yeah.
So, make sure that you don't litter during carnival time as much as possible. Keep your trash with you until you find a receptacle. Have some rest, drink lots of water, and sanitize.
Yeah. Keep it safe, keep it clean.
Keep it safe and keep it clean. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Bobb. Always a pleasure. And we look forward to having you on again as we discuss more about public health matters.
Yes, thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
Great. All right, viewers, that's it for this interview, but we have a lot more coming up for you after the break, so don't go anywhere.
Good morning, Tobago. Na, 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 na. Wake up with Candace and Denicia.
Let's go, go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks a favor to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong.